I on, Joss? Yeah. So good morning, church. So, put your hand up if you've had a good week. Okay, some hasn't. Put your hand up if you've had a horrible week.
You've got an echo.
Dot. I've got an echo apparently, Joss. Put your hand up if you had a horrible week. Okay, there's the brave ones. They can all come up the front now. So, this message, as Michael was saying, is the culture codes and we make it better. And you know when you kind of get a message, whether it's up the front or giving it to somebody or just sharing. And this is one of these messages where I said to God, I don't want to share it. I don't want to speak on this subject at all. It makes me vulnerable. It makes me scared. It makes me fearful. And I do not, under any circumstances, want to share. And he said, you know what? You're going to share it anyway. So I said, oh, thanks, God. So I had this idea on how I was going to share this kind of subject this morning, and I had this visual in my mind, and I said to Michael, and I was praying Michael was going to say, no, you can't do it. And I said, Michael, could you build this for me on Sunday? And of course he went, yeah, I can build anything.
I didn't say it.
So then he built it, and then it came Saturday, and I went, God, I really don't want to share this. And then I was like, well, Michael's built it already. And I was like, well, I don't care really. I can say to him, no, tear it apart, use it for something else. He said, no, Michael's built it. You've asked him, you preach on it. And then, as some of you will know, I got a job. And it was a 2-week trial. And come Friday, the boss grabbed me and said, could I have a chat? And I said, yeah, that would be great. And he turned around and he said, unfortunately, we haven't got enough work for you, Sam. And I said, oh, that's a real shame. And unfortunately, he had to let me go. And then I went back home and I was like, God, I am not preaching this now. And I went into my living room that day and I got the blankets and I sat in the sofa and I was like, I have had enough. And I went, I am tired, God. I am sick to death of this. I've had enough of church. And I am sick of sacrificing my life for you, God. And I give up. And I said, that's it. I don't want to talk anymore, God. And then, of course, God turned around and said, let's have a chat. And he said, that sermon you want to preach? I said, yeah, God, but I don't want to preach it. And he went, let me tell you about it. And then he brought up the scripture, which if you've all got your Bibles, can you turn with me? And it was Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30, and this is in the Message version. And it said, are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And wasn't that an answer? And that was verse 28 to 30 in the Message version. And the reason I was getting so upset wasn't because, I was gutted and I was upset that I'd lost the job. But sometimes when we get that upset and we get that fed up and we give up, there's something rooted in our hearts that we need to unroot with God. And he took me through a walk that afternoon and it turned out to be offence. And I had come to a realisation that me, Samuel Smith, who I thought I'd got it all together, didn't have it all together. That I'd been offended, I'd been taking on so much offence, but I hadn't been giving it to God. I'd been taking it on, and I'd been letting it get to my heart, letting it affect me, and I wasn't guarding my heart. So that's kind of like why I've come to this conclusion of God wants me to speak on offence. And to me, offence is kind of like a barrier. And this was a barrier for me. And the way the the sermon was we make it better, and we make it better by not creating barriers for ourselves, not creating barriers in our relationships, in our marriages, in our family, in our church. And I listened to this story, and it was Muhammad Ali, and he got on a plane, and this stewardess turned around to him and said, "Sorry sir, but you're going to have to put your seatbelt on now." And he turned around to the stewardess and said, "Superman don't need no seatbelt." And the stewardess turned around to him and went, "Superman don't need no plane." Yeah, I'm glad I got a laugh then. We're all right. And I'm going to tell you a horrible truth now, but today there is no Superman and there is no Superwoman. We are human. We all have our weaknesses. We all have our strengths. We all have our giftings. And we can all be led by God's calling and purpose on our life. And one of my weaknesses, and maybe some of your weaknesses, is taking offence, letting it get to me, and not giving it to God. So what I'm going to do is probably very strange to some of you, but I'm going to ask Alex, the very strong and abled man, could he pick that up and bring it on the stage? And could I invite Chris and Dawn up the stage? You're welcome.
It's not early, is it? You've done very well here, Michael.
He's done all right, hasn't he? Don't get offended. Now, Dawn, if you stand this side, and Christopher,
This side.
if you stand this side,
I've got this side.
you stay that side, you stay that side. Don't worry, it'll all work out. You see, sometimes when people say things to us, in marriage, in relationships, in friendships, even in church when there's a treasurer and administrator, we can get offended, can't we, Chris?
Absolutely.
Very good, so you're learning. You see, sometimes with offence, it can come into our hearts and then easily come into our thoughts. And we can easily speak it out. Whether Chris has offended me, I could then go on and offend Marion, and Marion could go on and offend Graham, and then that could affect their marriage, affect their family. So you see, church, don't ever think that when Chris or Dawn or someone offends you, it's only going to affect me. Well, it's only an offence, you know. Dawn only turned round to Chris and said, "I'm sick of mowing the lawn for 40 years. You sometimes think it's only words, but words hurt. And words hurt from loved ones.
Sorry, Chris.
So the reason I picked Chris and Dawn is because I know quite a lot about them. I know quite a lot about their personal life. And I know that they love each other. And I know that they're not just a marriage, but they're a friendship as well. So, Chris, you see, this plank of wood that Michael's very done nicely, give him a round of applause. This represents the offence, the hurtful words. This is what can destroy relationships. And the enemy will use every little bit of it to put it into your hands. This is going to be good this morning.
Oh, have I got all this as well, sandwiches, Chris?
Well, if Chris isn't able, you know, you can support him.
Okay, thank you.
Which it looks like he's not, so you can support him.
She likes to help.
But really, she doesn't like to help. She's sick of helping Chris. So when it comes into our hands, Dawn's told me some truth. When this comes into our hands, we sometimes can't let go of the offence. And then when Dawn has turned round to Chris and said, I'm sick of you, Chris. I'm sick of mowing the lawn for 40 years. You can tell it's not true, bless her. And Chris takes it personally.
No, don't. That's all. She's more than welcome to it. See, I can do it.
Play along.
Okay, sorry.
Play the game, Chris.
This is going to be really fun. And then Chris decides, you know what? I think Dawn's right. I think she really doesn't like me. I think she's had enough of our marriage. I think she's had enough of our friendship. She's not talking to me. She's knitting and knitting and knitting. And then Chris takes this offence. Walk with me. That's it. One foot in front of the other.
I can do that.
Good, good. You're learning. And then Chris grabs the offence.
Yeah.
And he decides that it's too heavy. It's too much of a burden. But instead of in his head thinking and thinking about it, it all of a sudden, put it in there, Chris, that's it. It roots in his heart. And all of a sudden,
Very well made, Michael.
Wow.
remember the sermon, Dawn? And all of a sudden, that offence that Dawn said to Chris is in his heart, is rooted deep in the heart. And then, of course, Chris has had enough of taking this offence and thinks, you know what? I'm going to give Dawn what she gives. And I'm going to give her a bit of an offence. And I'm going to say, Dawn, I've looked at your bank statements. And all of a sudden, there's nothing coming out of your bank, Dawn. It's all coming out of our bank. This so-called joint account. And Dawn goes, yes, but Chris, you really, really love me, though. You want me to spend your money, our money, not my money. My money's my money. Yeah, see? We've really planned this well, haven't we? And then Chris has said, but I've had enough. I've had enough of this. This is our money, all going on your shopping. I want a brand new car. And then Dawn says, well, have all the money, because I'm sick and tired of you, Chris, over this money. You're a treasurer, for goodness gracious. You're the tightest treasurer in the entire world.
Sammy
And then, of course, Dawn then does what Chris has done. Yeah, you get another blank. Dawn does what Chris does, and she puts it. Oh gosh. She puts it deep down in her heart, and all of a sudden it's 1-1, and they're still competing. They're still both offended at each other. They're still both hurt. They're both tired of being hurt, but they still go at each other. And then another offence comes over the knitting. And then again and again and again it gets worse by offence, by offence, by offence. And Chris is all of a sudden not speaking to Dawn. He's taking work personally.
Yeah, he is.
He won't speak to Dawn because work's more important than his marriage and friendship to Dawn.
Treasurer.
Church life is overcoming him. He's not making time for Dawn. He's making too much time for church. And then Dawn thinks, you know what? This isn't marriage. This isn't friendship. You can apply for Jeremy Kyle after this, Dawn.
I am.
And then Dawn really, really goes at Chris. She gets the hammer from the garage. She goes outside. She says, Chris, these two cars are both of our cars. Why do you keep using mine when you've got your car? And all of a sudden there's another argument over cars, over sharing. Because they've become self rather than sharing, they don't know what sharing is anymore. Because there's a wedge between them. There's a plank in their eye, or a speck. And then all of a sudden, Chris moves away from Dawn, moves away. Keep going, Chris, come on.
I'm just probably behind it.
And Dawn comes here, and all of a sudden the offence comes too big. And Dawn puts the last offence in.
Yep.
Go on, Dawn. And then there is actually a fence between them.
Oh, yeah.
You see, there's a... Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
You have to walk round it, no.
Dawn and Chris are now not even looking at each other because there's so much hatred. There's so much offence between them that every time they look at each other, their mouth, their tongue, their thoughts are full of hurtful things. He's sick and tired of the ladies' ministry. He's tired of her receipts after receipts. He's tired of Dawn always coming to him, asking him for money. But all of a sudden, the wedge is too big, and Dawn, being the lady, of course,
Yes.
I'll stick up for the ladies this morning.
Thank you, Sam.
Dawn turns round and she's like, Chris, why aren't we talking no more?
Took offence.
Stop. Where's the love?
Yeah. Where is it, Chris?
Where's...
I haven't took it.
We've been married 40 years Friday.
70.
And you see, Dawn has come to a realisation. Now you stay there, I'm talking to you, Christopher.
They should be everything too.
You can sit down in a minute. Dawn comes to a point where she's, because she's a lady, she said, Chris, this isn't us. This isn't why we started together. This isn't what we built our friendship on all these years.
No.
Our friendship was built on each other, on love. When we became Christians,
That's right.
it was built on Christ's love. Why aren't we praying together? Why aren't we reading our Bible?
We do.
I know you do. You'd be terrible in panto, you would.
Oh no, we won't.
And then one by one, as Dawn has come to a realisation that this isn't of Chris, this isn't of Dawn, this isn't of God, she then begins to search what it is. She begins to then to search, why has this happened? Why have we got here? Why have we gone from strong friends to can't even look at each other? So then Dawn begins, Dawn, you grab that. She then begins to unroot things. She goes on the Freedom in Christ course.
Yes.
She then begins to find out that this offence, you grab it as well, we're in this together.
Okay.
She begins to grab it and she says, this was all about a stupid argument. This was all about one little thing that got out of the way. It got too big and Dawn just decided to throw it at the person that was closest to her, which was Chris. And then she just decides to take it away. That way, Dawn, towards the piano.
Go. We'll put it down here.
Yeah, oh, hang on. And Dawn decides that this offence is not worth holding on to. It's not worth the destruction that it can cause. It's not worth it. Chris is more worth than this offence.
He is.
She then decides
I love him really.
that the best way is to, when someone says these horrible words, the best way is to, grab it by all your might. Decide what to do with it. If you want to take it to heart, you carry on, but I'd recommend not to. And she decides, I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to have Chris talking down to me like that. She then decides to grab it, and she just drops it. She just puts it down. She lays it down and gives it to God. And then Chris, because he's seen his amazing wife do the same, he then decides, you know what? I'm going to go on that Freedom in Christ course. I'm going to go on that Alpha course. I'm going to see what this is all about. And he decides, I've found out that, cars is not worth more than my wife. So then he decides, I'm going to grab this offence and I'm going to have a big look at it. Lovely, isn't it? And then I'm going to search, have a look. I'm going to even grab a friend who I trust, who I know that I don't need to guard my heart with because they know who I am. And I'm going to speak to that friend and I'm going to let them help me through this journey. I'm going to let them take these offences. And then Chris decides that this offence is not worth more than Dawn. Is not worth more than the friendship that they have together. This offence will not love Chris more than Dawn does.
Amen.
This offence will cause destruction. And it will root in your heart quickly. And unless Chris decides to take the first step of uprooting the offence, and then go and do it, Chris. And then Chris decides, I'm going to go to my lovely wife. And all of a sudden there's something different about Dawn. She's happier. You haven't even finished yet. You've got loads of fences to go yet. See, you can get ahead of yourselves in Christ sometimes.
It's just a gesture.
So Chris decides that there's something different about Dawn. She's happier. She's looking at me. She's still not talking to me, but she's looking at me. And then Dawn says, there's something different about Chris. Every time I knit, he asks me, how are you getting on, Dawn? Is that knitting pattern going good? He says, you don't want to be doing that many stitches, you want to be doing this many. And then Chris decides, you know what? I'm going to keep on doing this, it's working. It's bringing my wife, my friendship, my love for her closer and closer.
Yeah, that's very good.
And Dawn decides the same. She thinks, this is working. Jesus is actually working in my life. She's like, Christ works. Prayer works. The Bible works. It's unbelievable. And then all of a sudden, they're down to the one offence. And usually the one left is the worst one. It's usually the deepest root in your heart. And I wonder what that could be between Chris and Dawn. And then Chris begins to grab this offence, but doesn't have the strength to pick it up. Because you see, church, we can't do this alone. It doesn't work alone. We have to club together. We have to be unified together. So then Chris says, who's the one person I love and trust more than anything? And it's the person next to his side. So then Chris turns round to Dawn and says, Dawn, you know that thing I said to you? Dawn goes, yes, that horrible, horrible thing you said to me. And he goes, I was wrong. Believe it or not, Chris says it. And he says, I was wrong, Dawn, to say those things. And then Dawn is in floods of tears and she says to Chris, I was wrong too. And it's happily ever after. And then they both grab this, because when they're unified and together, there can be sometimes a bit of resistance. But then
It is because you won't let it go.
Dawn then encourages Chris, and then Chris encourages Dawn. And because they're encouragers, all of a sudden it begins and there's no resistance.
Thank you, Jesus.
You see, the only way we can truly get rid of these offences is if... Chris, you're not finished yet. You hold that one there. You see, the only way we can truly get rid of these offences is finding what they are, finding the root cause, don't you hold this, and deciding what first caused it, and then deciding how can we fix this, Chris. And because they love each other, and because they have a great pastor, because there's a great leadership team,
Yes.
they say, where do we go to sort this, Chris? And Chris turns around and says, let's go to the church. Because the church is our sanctuary.
Absolutely.
The church is our place of help.
Amen.
And then the pastor, being wisdom and everything like that, turns around and says, you know what? The only way to fix this is to take it to the cross.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
You see, Jesus went on the cross for these very reasons. Don't ever think, church, I can't give that to God, it's too big. What if Jesus can't handle that? But Jesus went on the cross so we could bring these very things to him. You see, sometimes it starts in the heart, sometimes it starts in the thoughts, but if you don't cut the root, it will spread and spread and spread. And because Chris and Dawn, they're not getting divorced, they're not anything like that, don't worry, church. They've not gone through marriage counsel over the past week. Because they love each other and are strong, not just in their marriage, but in their relationships. Just as this doesn't just suit marriages, this suits friendships. And friends sometimes can be the worst at offending each other. So church, love each other, care for each other, defend each other, and most importantly, encourage each other. Amen.
Amen. That's really well done, Chris.
I forgive you, Chris. It's over and done with now. You're fine. You did all right. Amen.
Wonderful, amen. Yeah.